Hey, it's Captain America. What are we on? Episode 4? 5? Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America. We're on episode 5 of Marvel Rewind. I have not seen Captain America since 2011. The first one. I just wasn't wild about it at the time. I wasn't wild about Thor either. The only movies I really liked in Phase 1 were Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and even Iron Man 2, as I spoke about, I had some issues with. But they announced that Joss Whedon was going to direct the Avengers. I had faith, so I knew I had to see them before I went to go see the Avengers. And I watched them both in one day, almost a decade ago now. At the time, I liked Captain America better. Same today now. I like Captain America a lot better. Honestly, watching through this again, in the exact same situation, me and my roommate, Kevin, watched them both together 10 years ago almost, back in 2011. This time we didn't do a double feature, but I watched it with Kevin again, and we made jokes throughout it and commented on stuff. And we both kind of had the same reaction as we did the first time. The first act of this movie is pretty great. First half even is pretty great. It loses steam when it becomes montage heavy towards the end. The third act is kind of lame and low stakes. I mean, it's not low stakes because the world is in jeopardy, but it's low stakes because I don't care emotionally. Like, I know the bad guy's going to lose. The hero and the villain aren't really intrinsically tied together so much. And then the climax is just stupid. So I'll get into all that in a minute, but let's talk about Captain America. It's frustrating to watch this now because Cap 2 and 3 are pretty great movies, and Chris Evans is one of the best casting choices they made. I mean, everybody's great, obviously, and eventually Hemsworth would really come into his own as Thor, but from the jump, Evans is fantastic as Steve Rogers. He's the best casting in Phase 1, aside from Downey Jr., maybe even better, in as much as it's a trickier character to play. It's hard to play a Boy Scout, and he does it so well. Once again, Marvel's choosing interesting directors. They went with Joe Johnston. I think that's his name. Or Joe Johnson. He's known for directing The Rocketeer, which I've never seen, but people fucking love. People love The Rocketeer. I think it's one of the classic, American superhero stories. With a great, nostalgic 1940s kind of vibe to it. And Nazis are the bad guys, but, what the idea is, like, what happens if Nazis got jetpacks, I think is the plot of Rocketeer. And I think Howard Hughes is in it. The character, as a character, a billionaire, genius, kind of tech-savvy guy working for the government to fight the Nazis. And all that kind of happens in this movie, except instead of jetpacks, it's superhero, super serum, soldier stuff. And instead of Howard Hughes, it's Howard Stark. And it's the same director. It very much takes place in the 40s and feels like a 1940s movie. This is the first Marvel movie to do the thing that they'd become brilliant at, which is, let's not do the exact same thing. Let's shake it up. So this movie isn't just a superhero origin story. It's a World War II flick, it's a period piece, and it's kind of a spy movie, all wrapped up in one. It's not just the hero's journey again, which Thor kind of was. I mean, it's got a lot of glamour around Asgardian shit. But let's face it, we've seen that story a billion times. It's kind of a King Arthur story with the hammer stuck in the rock, but nothing really new about it. It wasn't like playing in a genre the way this one would, and then later films like, obviously, Cap 2 is a spy, espionage thriller, Guardians is a space opera, Ant-Man's a heist movie, so on and so forth. This is the first time they did that, and I think it's a really smart move, and it works really well, like I said, for the first half. The cast, aside from Evans, is pretty great. Tommy Lee Jones is always a breath of fresh air. Haley Atwell is great as Peggy Carter. She kind of got the worst cards, I think, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's great in this movie. She continues to be good under a lot of old age makeup in other movies. And she got her own show for a minute there, but I really wish that Peggy Carter kind of got her own movie. She's way more compelling without Steve, I think. And her journey as becoming kind of the first agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think that's her backstory, is after this movie, S.H.I.E.L.D. is formed, and she's kind of the first agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'd like to see more of her. She's great. Who else is in this fucking thing? Hugo Weaving plays Red Skull. That one dude, Toby Jones, I think is his name, plays Zola, who's kind of like an underling scientist dude to Red Skull. And then Sebastian Stan plays Bucky, who doesn't matter in this movie. Although I will admit, the first time I watched it, when Bucky is falls off the train, I remember talking about it and afterwards being like, I bet you that he comes back. I don't know how, but just something about the way that felt. It's like we spent the whole movie like trying to get him back. we got him back, and then he just falls off a train. And it's not really a revenge story, like where, now Cap has to go get revenge for the guy he got killed. I don't know, and we didn't really see him hit the ground. It just feels like he's coming back. I knew nothing about Winter Soldier. I knew nothing about Captain America. So it just feels like, when that happens towards the latter half of the movie, you're like, what? Okay, he fell off a train. That's weird. And then finally, casting-wise, we have Stanley Tucci playing the German scientist who injects Steve Rogers. Can't remember the character's name. The cast is all good. And then the writers, first I'm talking about the writers, kind of since Iron Man, I think, are, I don't want to fuck up their names. It's Marcus and Marcus and McFeely, but I can't remember who's Chris and who is Steve, so I'm going to cheat. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. These two dudes wrote all 3 Captain America movies, as well as Infinity War and Endgame. So they've become kind of the biggest voices of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they really understand character. It was rumored, not even rumored, I think this is confirmed, Joss Whedon did do a bit of a script rewrite, a dialogue polish for this movie. And you can kind of tell some of the back and forth, some of the one-liners feel kind of Joss Whedon-y. But if you look at Cap 2 and Infinity War and Civil War, all that one-linery stuff is still there, so they clearly know what they're doing anyway. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what exactly Joss Whedon added to this to make it more his own. Because obviously he got to direct the Avengers, so he was brought on to kind of tinker with character stuff for this one, apparently. So yeah, those 2 guys, Marcus and McFeely, are great. I have a very strong suspicion there's a lot of deleted scenes in this movie. It feels like a lot of stuff is missing, but it's a 2-hour movie, and what are you going to do? It's mostly character stuff. Like, it feels like they wanted Howard Stark, Tony's dad, and Steve Rogers to have a friendship. And they kind of do. They have like one scene together where they talk and make jokes, but they don't really feel like friends. It feels like they wanted to establish Bucky and Steve are childhood friends and have a long history, and they kind of set that up, but not really. It feels like they wanted to really give Red Skull a big villainous kind of backstory where he kind of went insane due to getting the serum and all this shit. And they kind of do, but not really. So the writing in this one is not the strongest suit. They would eventually write a much better movie with Cap 2. So I want to give them a shout out now and tell everybody to go seek out the Fat Man on Batman, or maybe it's Fat Man Beyond at this point. Go to youtube.com/Kevin Smith and search for them. They were interviewed live in front of a live audience with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin talking about Infinity War and a little bit about Endgame and a lot about writing the 3 Cap movies. So those 2 guys are great. So that's all that out of the way. Let's talk about the movie. It does the thing where it starts at the end, where it's, hey, we found something in the ice. Hey, look, a shield. That shield. Then it cuts back to the 40s, and we see the fucking Nazis that aren't really the Nazis. They're called Hydra. They're invading a Norse guy's house, and they find a blue rock. And if you saw Thor, you're like, hey, that's the blue rock from the end credits. No one says Tesseract. It's just a thing that we know is connected to Thor, and it has a shitload of power. So Red Skull uses the Tesseract, I'm just going to say it, uses the Tesseract to as an energy source to create these fucking crazy-ass weapons because he wants to destroy the world, including, the Fuhrer and Berlin and all that stuff. He's crazy and powerful and strong, and they established that early on because he got injected with a super serum soldier thing that didn't work, and that soldier defected to America, and we meet Steve Rogers. It's a great introduction. He's being rejected again from joining the military. The CGI on his creepy, skinny, scrawny Chris Evans looks really good for the most part. And we get the most memorable line from Steve, and kind of across all the movies, where he's getting beaten up in an alleyway by a guy, and the guy says, come on, don't you know when to quit? And Steve says, I could do this all day. Great stuff. Or we introduced to Bucky. They go to like a World's Fair, and we see that Howard Stark, the same World's Fair that was in Iron Man 2, started in the 40s. We see Howard Stark as the same kind of chauvinist, showman, making out with women, wearing nice suits, look at my technology kind of guy. We see where Tony came from. And there we meet the scientist who recruits Steve Rogers, and he goes to basic training, and we kind of get a Mulan sequence. Let's get down to business to defeat the Nazis. Did they send me daughters when I asked for people who can defeat Nazis? It is kind of that scene. I'll make a man of you. Steve Rogers is the scrawniest one. Nobody likes him. Again, we get a great character moment, which is in the trailer, where Tommy Lee Jones throws a live grenade, says grenade. Everyone else runs. Steve dies on the grenade to protect his fellow soldiers. Turns out it's a dud. So all that stuff works really, really well, and he's chosen to be a super soldier, and they give him the fucking thing, and it's Frankenstein's monster laboratory sequence. We find out Howard Stark was involved in creating Captain America. And then we get our action sequence because there was a spy there, and Steve Rogers looks fucking ripped as shit and really attractive and hot and built when he comes out of the tube as Captain America. We get a cool action sequence. The scientist dies. All of the evidence and scientific data has been destroyed, so we can never recreate the serum. And then Captain America, this is where the movie starts to go sideways. Captain America is relegated as a chorus girl kind of thing for like 20 minutes of the movie. It's funny for a second, but it goes on way too long. He ends up overseas, finds out his buddy's been kidnapped, or not kidnapped, taken prisoner of war, and decides he's going to go in and rescue them on his own. That's a cool sequence, and then it honestly feels like that's the end of the movie. Like, he's proven that he's Captain America. And then we get kind of a James Bond montage, which is kind of fun, where he's getting his shield designed. But then the stupid romance plot comes in, and it's really lame. Peggy sees Captain America kissing another woman, then she fires a gun at him. Granted, he's holding a big-ass shield. We see the creation of the shield, which Howard Stark invented. Tony's dad invented Captain America's shield. Or designed it. Found the vibranium. Our first mention of vibranium. Nothing about Wakanda yet. But yeah, it's just kind of, but like, okay, we're setting up for, let's go out and do the Captain America thing. Let's go win the war. And we get like maybe a 3-minute montage of Cap and his gang destroying weapons facilities and destroying Hydra shit and trying to stop him from destroying the world. And you're like, that should be the fucking movie. Like, that'd be great. That's what you want to see, is Captain America doing Captain America stuff. And we really only get to see it for a second. Then comes the train sequence where Bucky falls. Then we're on to Act 3, which is let's invade the bad guy's thing, blow it up. He's got a doomsday plane. Tony is on the plane. The bad guy picks up the Tesseract. A big portal opens up, and he kind of gets thrown off into space. No fucking way were they planning to use him in Infinity War at this point, but it is a nice little, they were able to pay that off, which is nice, later on in Infinity War. At the time, I was like, what happened to the bad guy? What? Okay, Tesseract, bad thing. The cube made him go poof. And then then Steve has to crash the plane. And it doesn't make any fucking sense. If he can steer the plane, if he can go up and down, why can't he go left and right? He's got, like a plane full of weapons. Couldn't he disable the plane without having to crash it and kill himself? Also, the big plane that's going to blow up the world is full of little planes, which might be bombs, they don't really explain it. But it's shown that he can fly one. Couldn't he, nosedive the big plane into the ice and then take one of the little planes and live? The whole end of that movie is not satisfying. I get it, we have to get Steve buried in the ice, but I really wish they'd set it up better. It's a really unsatisfying bit of an ending. Then he wakes up in New York and in the future, and we see Nick Fury, and there's a nice little line like, "Oh man, I'm late for a date." Okay, fine. So yeah, the movie's kind of a mess structurally. It doesn't have a satisfying ending, really at all for me. I do love the character. I like the camaraderie with the team of dudes we get to hang out with. Love Tommy Lee Jones, but yeah, it's a kind of a flawed movie. The action sequences are okay. They hadn't figured out how to use Cap yet, so his fight scenes aren't as cool, parkour, interesting as they'd become, MMA style. It's just kind of like dudes punching each other. The idea of two super soldiers fighting one-on-one never really happens in an interesting way, just like, Thor versus Loki wasn't done very well, just like the Abomination versus the Hulk wasn't done very well. Once again, we have a fucking Marvel movie where the hero is fighting basically an evil version of himself. It's got problems. As far as setting up the world, big one. It's a huge one in terms of setting up the world, and it did it better than Iron Man 2 because it told its own story. This is very much Cap's story, and you see where he came from, you believe who he is, you buy the Boy Scout routine, you buy why he wants to go fight. You find out he's an orphan whose father was killed overseas, his mother was a nurse, he comes from a family that wants to help. And how it's not about him with having a pride issue, it's about why should he be left out when everyone else is out there fighting? He's not special. He's just another kid from Brooklyn. All that works really well. And aside from setting up that character, which is really important, because going into the Avengers, at this point we've met everybody, and you're like, well, they're going to recast the Hulk, so that didn't really count. We loved Iron Man. Everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. I don't know what to think about Thor. It was funny when he said another and like smashed a coffee mug. That was kind of all we knew about Thor. I mean, I didn't really like him that much. He wasn't unlikable. He was just kind of there. And then we got Cap, and Cap was the first one. I was like, I do want to see him interact, and I really want to see those two characters, the Tony Stark, creature of the future, always forward-thinking, creative mind, interacting with someone who's a child of the past, who is very much set in very old-fashioned ways, not into technology at all. I was looking forward to seeing that, and the father connection, you know. So they needed another character besides Tony for the Avengers, and this movie did that. Also, of course, it introduces the Shield. It introduces the idea of Shield itself, that superheroes can work together with the government. It introduces the idea that technology is going to be a big part of the Avengers, even though we got a bunch of superheroes now. Technology is still a big part of it. Like, it isn't just he has a shield. It came from a place. A scientist built it. It's designed to do a thing. And of course, at the end, it sets up the fact that he's back. He's now in our time. He's now, just like every other character we've met so far, is a traumatized hero. You know, Tony's dealing with daddy issues. He has PTSD from hanging out in a cave. He almost died in Iron Man 2. He was sure he was going to die for most of Iron Man 2. Thor is dealing with the loss of his brother, who went fucking crazy and threw himself off a bridge. Also, he misses his girlfriend, I guess. The Hulk Bruce is dealing with all the shit that makes Bruce Banner such a complex character. And of course, Cap is a PTSD war soldier displaced in time. So all that is set up really, really well. And it ends and you're not like, I can't wait to see, you don't feel, I can't wait to see Captain America 2. That is not how you feel when you finish watching this movie. It does make you go like, okay, I do want to see the next one if it's the Avengers, which we all knew it was. So, yeah, I mean, it's an okay flick. I'm glad that they went a different way for Iron Man, or for Captain America 2 in terms of directors. Who, you know, those two dudes, we'll talk about them when we get there, but those two guys went on to kind of become the massive architects visually, directorially of the movies, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so pretty big fucking deal. That's basically all I have to say about this one. It's a movie that I wish worked better. When the jokes land, it's great. When there are certain moments that are cheesy but beautiful, like where Cap is running and a dude fires a gun at him and he picks up the door of a cab, which has a star on it. So it's like a prelude to the Shield. Cheesy, but it's good. Stuff like, you know, Red Skull says, "You never give up, do you?" And fucking Steve just goes, "Nope," and just fucking punches him in the face. Like, it's great to see all that just pure, like, goodness. You know, as what's his fucking name? Not Tony Shalhoub. Stanley Tucci. As Stanley Tucci says, when you take the serum, it elevates everything in you. So if you're good, you become great. And he is. He's just kind of a pure good guy who, you know, when we get to Civil War, I disagree with a lot of what he feels and thinks. But it's fun. It works really well. The camaraderie is good. We almost believe that Bucky and Steve are friends for more than just being told they're friends. And, you know, it's fun to watch the Shield bounce around. You know, the 3.5 minutes of that montage of them, of the team taking out Hydra bases and destroying weapons factories is so fucking interesting. Like, that is absolutely the movie I wish we'd gotten. I know they had a lot of ground to cover, so I'm not sure how they would have done it. But yeah, you can see what might be good about this if they figure it out, which they eventually did. So that's all for this particular edition of what is it? Marvel Rewind. Captain America, the first Avenger. Yeah, I'll see you next time with the big one. Well, the first big one. The Avengers, coming out on Friday. Hope you like my lighting setup. I tried to make it, you can see my whole face and everything. Bye. This tag at the end of Captain America, which hopefully I won't get a copyright claim for, it's muted, I'm blocking the image, and I'm talking about it. So I think it's clear that I'm not just trying to do a thing, it's fair use, I'm actually using it for points of criticism. When this tag showed up, I think everybody kind of collectively lost their shit. Everyone knew to look for tags at this point, everyone knew there were setups, and everyone knew the Avengers was next, so how are they gonna set it up? And it's literally a trailer. It is flat out a trailer. I think it even says, like, next summer. It is flat out a trailer for the Avengers, and it's got some nice dialogue moments in it from the movie. It's got some great action in it. You see some characters interacting. You know, the last time I was this hyped for a movie, a sequel, they did the same thing with The Matrix. After the Matrix Reloaded, at the end of it, there was literally a trailer for The Matrix Revolutions. That didn't work out. So, yeah, they literally put a trailer at the end for the Avengers. That's the tag. Like, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows why you're here. Fuck it. We are going to do the Avengers next. Pretty great. The only thing I'll want to say about it, and I'll probably talk about it next time too, is I had forgotten, till I watched that trailer again, I'd forgotten the tagline was, some assembly required. That's pretty cheesy. Some assembly required. I mean, I get it, because Avengers assemble. But, anyway, for reals this time. See you next time on Marvel Rewind.